Hello, Year 7. I'm going to go through the answers to the last two quizzes for the climate topic. I was going to go through kind of strengths and weaknesses, but it's a bit of a mixed bag across the board, so I'm just going to go through and explain the answers, especially to the more difficult questions. Okay, so I'll start off with the first quiz and then I'll move on to the second one. So the first few lessons are all about weather and climate and weather in this country. So the first question is, what's the difference between weather and climate? So a lot of people got this wrong. But weather is the day-to-day changes. Okay, climate is the long-term behaviour. So the weather right now for me is sunny with some clouds, but the climate is what we would call temperate, which means it's mild all year round. Okay. A microclimate, so a microclimate is an area that has a climate that is distinctly different from the surrounding area. Okay, so it might be caused by if you've got, say, a sun trap in your garden, if you've got an area that catches a lot of sun and gets really warm, or an area that's quite exposed, so it's quite windy and cold, that's a microclimate. So the climate is different, only slightly, but different from the surrounding area. So the impact that buildings have on microclimates. So buildings, the bricks absorb heat and that heat gets radiated out, so it can make areas quite hot. They also, to get a little bit more complicated, can cause what we call a wind tunnelling effect. So they can cause the wind to be diverted in certain areas and make areas quite windy. Okay, so which part of the UK has the most rainfall? That is the northwest. Yeah. A rain shadow is a little bit tricky, but if you've managed to put in the fact that the mountains running down the middle of the country, so things like the Pennines, push storms that come from the west upwards, cause them to condense and rain, and then when you get to the east side there's no rain left in those clouds, so it's drier. Okay, in fact let me just have a quick go through it with a picture. So what happens is all our storms, well not all of our storms, most of our storms come from the west. Okay, because that's our prevailing wind brings the storms in from that direction, okay, and those clouds in. So the clouds are full of moisture. When they get to the mountains, they get pushed upwards, they condense and cool and rain, and then that air is now dry. It doesn't have any clouds in it. So towards the other side, it is much drier, and that's why we've got more rain on the west than we do on the east. Okay. Precipitation is rain, snow, hail, any kind of version of water that comes from the sky. Two greenhouse gases, the two you should have got are carbon dioxide and methane. They're the two ones that we've looked at. Human enhanced greenhouse effect is where we add to the layer of greenhouse gases, which makes that layer thicker, which means less heat can escape into space and it heats up our planet, so it causes climate change. Okay, you can revert back to the video where I talk through that if it helps. Three sources of greenhouse gas emissions. We have agriculture, so that's farming, deforestation, that is cutting down trees, and the biggest one is the burning of fossil fuels. Yeah, so coal, oil and gas, whether it's for a petrol engine or a diesel engine in a car or a power station that generates electricity. Which leads us into that question, why do we burn fossil fuels? Well, for energy. So coal, oil and gas can be burned to create electricity in power stations. Petrol and diesel is a form of oil that is burnt in a car engine to make your car move. So they're the answers to those ones. Some of those are quite tricky. Okay, feel free to go back and look at the lessons if you want to go over it. But they're the answers to those questions. So now if we move on to the second quiz, now at this point not a huge amount of you have done it. Hopefully by the time you get onto this video you have. So this one has caused a lot of problems. Is burning fossil fuels a cause or effect of climate change? Now cause is what causes something to happen. Okay, and effect is what happens as a result. So what causes you to go to school is the law, and effect of you going to school is you getting an education. Okay? Burning fossil fuels is a cause of climate change because burning the fossil fuels produces the greenhouse gases that trap heat in our planet. Okay, how many tourists visited the Maldives in 2015? So that was on a information sheet that should look like this, and it says there was more than 1 million. A few people got this one right. So how much of the Maldives is less than a metre above sea level? That's 80%. Why does global warming cause sea levels to rise? Because it melts the polar ice caps and that adds water into our oceans. Now if you want to get really clever with it, what it also does is it heats up the oceans, and warm water takes up more space than cold water because the molecules spread out. and that's called thermal expansion. But don't worry about that one too much, as long as you can remember that the polar ice caps melt. Okay, so how will sea level rise affect the UK? So we're going to have more coastal flooding. That's the biggest one. Okay, we might even lose some coastal towns. Okay, so these two questions are linked together. So mitigation and adaptation are all about managing climate change. So mitigation is trying to reduce the amount of greenhouse gases that are being released, or trying to trap and bring some back in that have already been released. So it's things like carbon capture, using renewable energy, so you're not burning fossil fuels to get your energy. Okay, they're the main ones. Okay, afforestation is another one, which is the opposite of deforestation. Afforestation is planting trees. So if you plant trees, they'll breathe in and absorb the CO2. So it's taking that fossil fuel out of the atmosphere. So mitigation is trying to reduce the amount of greenhouse gases that are in our atmosphere. Adaptation is trying to live with the effect. So it might be changing what crops that you grow so they can grow in warmer or drier conditions. Yeah, it might be that you have to be more clever with how you use your water because your water supply is reduced and you have to be more effective with that. So mitigation is trying to slow and stop the problem of climate change. Adaptation is trying to survive with the changes. Okay, if you want to be really clever, the reason why you need both of them is because, well, it's already happening, so we need to adapt, but we can't let it get any worse, so we've got to mitigate. What can we do for energy other than burning fossil fuels? So there's renewable energy. I'm sure you've all seen wind farms, solar panels, you've got wave energy, hydroelectric energy. There's some examples. Biomass, some of you might have biomass heaters in your homes. Okay, it's burning wood instead of burning coal, oil and gas. Okay. I've already explained this one a little bit, but afforestation reduces climate change because planting trees, which is what this means, absorbs CO2, takes it out of the atmosphere, so it's no longer trapping heat in our planet. Okay, so how can we manage our water supply? We can build more dams, okay, but more importantly, we can be more efficient with how we use it. So don't waste water, have water butts in our garden, don't leave the tap running when you brush your teeth. Fix the leaks. 20% of water in this country is lost through leaky pipes. Yeah, so there's lots of different answers you can put for that one. Okay, so this is kind of your orange sticker feedback then, so you can go through your quiz and you can see where you went wrong, okay, and hopefully learn the correct answers. And since this is the last video I'll be doing this year, just well done for all your hard work, Year 7. It's been so hard. You've not had a proper year yet at Rydale. And things like this we will go over again because climate change is obviously really important. So don't worry too much. You've worked really hard and you deserve your 7 weeks off. See you later.